Hi guys, I'm Jane Austen. Come back to my channel. So it's been a couple of days since the last time I posted on my YouTube channel, and in my last book review video, I was just talking about how a Tale to City plot is giving you guys an inside look into the lives of a couple characters during and inside the French Revolution. And the French Revolution is a very dark time, so in order to change the tone a little bit, in today's video, you guys and I will be taking a look at Jane Austen's Northanger Abbey. And in my opinion, Northanger Abbey is a very light and a perfect novel for any occasion that is reading, listening, either it's unabridged, abridged, full version, or even just an article critiquing and talking about the book. I'll be linking all of that in the description below, so you guys can enjoy it in your spare time. But in today's video, I'll be talking about Northanger Abbey. So now, let's jump straight in. Okay, so like my usual format of reviewing books, I usually goes over the life of the author a little bit, but because I already mentioned that in another book review of mine, which is also about Jane Austen's work, I'll be not talking about that. But so let's move on to Northanger Abbey. Okay, so Northanger Abbey is a coming-of-age novel, or I might say a Bildungsroman. Is that how you pronounce it? Okay, thanks Google Translate. But Northanger Abbey is a coming-of-age novel, and is Jane Austen's first novel ever to be completed for publication. So, originally called Susan, the book was written for 1 year from 1798 to 1799, and Jane Austen finished revives and adding the book all finished in the year 1803. However, after her failed attempt for publishing, she tried to send the book, the finished manuscript, to a publishing company called Crosby and Co. Similarly to a guy called Benjamin Crosby. However, the guy failed to actually publish a novel, which is a very unprofessional thing of him, and he decided against publishing the book. And all of this made Jane Austen really frustrated, because at first she was so excited that her novel was getting published, and because of that, she tried to write numerous letters to this company, trying to ask them and threatening them that she will take her book, her manuscript, to another company and publish it with another company name. The company offered to sell her back the book for exact amount of money. Jane Austen wasn't able to pay back for the transition. So because of that, for a very long time, the company finally was able to sell off the book back to the Austen's family, specifically to Jane Austen's brother, that is Henry Austen. And Henry Austen decided to buy back the book for exactly £10, and after revising it, and after Jane Austen changing the character, fixing it, and other adding, and changing the book to Northanger Abbey, changing the character to Catherine, the book was finally finished. And it wasn't up until after the death of Jane Austen that the book was finally published in September 1817. Almost 14 years since the day the book was due to publish. So now let's move on to Northanger Abbey. Northanger Abbey is a story of a 17-year-old Catherine Morland, one of 10 children of the Morland, the family of a clergyman and his wife in the countryside. So, Catherine, although despite her wild childhood, running around and playing with dirt and doing all of the tomboy things with her siblings, she soon grew into training to be a heroine lady when she reached her 17-year-old. She started to adopt her hobby of reading novels, of dressing up, and can't wait for balls, for party, and other social hangouts and delights. So one day she was picked and invited by the Allens, a wealthy, richer neighborhood of them, to go to Bath, accompanying Mrs. Allen. Mrs. Allen so kindly decided to invite Catherine to go to Bath with her and enjoy a vacation there. So Although having lack of acquaintance, knowing nobody at Bath, Catherine was soon introduced to a very charming, intriguing, and interesting young man called Henry Tilney, a gentleman. Despite being the new person, Henry Tilney is a very open person and a very sarcastic and funny person. Both of them start chatting openly as if they know each other for so long and dance and chatted for the whole evening. It wasn't for a couple of days that Catherine didn't see Henry that she decided to take up another friend, another lady called Isabella Thorpe. Isabella had come to Bath with her family, her mother and her sister, and she introduced Catherine to a whole library of Gothic novels. Gothic novels here by the means of a mystery romance novel, and Catherine soon became interested in one of Lady Radcliffe's novels called The Mystery of Udolpho. So after that, Catherine is surprisingly learned that Isabella's brother, John Thorpe, is also a friend of her brother, James Thorpe. It was an exciting occasion. Soon, Catherine meet up with Henry again, and Henry Tilney introduced her to his sister, Miss Eleanor Tilney, a very sweet, elegant, and kind person. She's also polite, so she don't rush Catherine to things, and she and Catherine talk very, very interesting together. However, Isabella is kind of jealous with this, and thanks to the way of writing by Jane Austen, she had provided us with two contrast images of Eleanor Tilney and Isabella Thorpe. One is kind, polite, sweet, and the other is manipulative and sometimes kind of loud and annoying. They all have such a good time together. This is why occasionally Isabella would try to sabotage her friendship, Catherine's friendship with the Tilneys. And then one day, Catherine is once again surprised that Isabella and her brother James Morland is going to be married. She was so excited, but she is still kind of confused of how this relationship was built up and how Isabella loved James and all of that. But because Catherine is still naive and innocent, she don't recognize that the love between both of these guys. One more thing you should mention. Isabella is very excited, but however, after learning of the modest fortune that James have to live on, she start to have doubts and start to become apart and disappointed of James, and she start to flirt with Henry Tilney's older brother, Captain Tilney. However, Henry Tilney recognized this, and when Catherine upset and sad, Harry tried to comfort her, stating that it is both of these guys' fault and they have to learn a lesson from that, and you cannot stop any of this, and it's not your fault. And then one day she was invited by the Tilneys to visit their home. There she meet Eleanor, of course, Henry, and their father, General Tilney. General Tilney at first very welcoming, and during the stay there, thanks to reading too much Gothic novels, Catherine decided to have this weird theory that Captain Tilney murdered his wife, because she found an old manuscript of some sort telling her about the laundry facility of the dead Mrs. Tilney, and she started to think that perhaps Captain Tilney murdered his wife. But it's not true, of course. She bumped into Henry Tilney twice, a couple of times on the stairs, and she breaks out talking about all of the things she theory in her head to him, and he was astonished, but he gently tried to correct her, and she finally believed him. But she feared that he hated her, and he would not want to marry her now. So Captain Tilney returned back home that day, and he angrily threw Catherine out of the house. Yeah, and it was during that time that Catherine also received a letter from her brother informing that the engagement between him and Isabella had breaks out. With two of these heavy things inside her mind, Catherine traveled home lonely and sad and worried and frightened too, until the visit of Henry Tilney suddenly come, and she was so surprised and happy. Henry Tilney told her everything about the reason why his dad get angry and all of that, and she soon finally learned that during his business trip to London, General Tilney had pumped into John's throat. The guy that Isabella tried to persuade Catherine to marry. John Thorpe, having gone angry because Catherine did not marry him, had tried to make the general believe that Catherine is a poor woman and she don't have no status and she's like just like destitute, And the general is so angry that he disappointed his son to find such a poor girlfriend that he threw Catherine out of the house. However, after Henry tried to talk and convince his dad that it is not true, the general finally believed. And after that, after Henry asked the permission of Catherine's parents, both of Catherine and Henry got married together happily. And the story ended there, with Catherine and Henry married together, and Eleanor, Henry's older sister and Catherine's friend, having engaged to a titled and rich young man in the suburb. The story ended there. Okay, now let's move on to other thing I want to mention here. So, Northanger Abbey is considered to be a parody of Gothic novels, specifically Gothic novels by Mrs. Radcliffe. Yes, she's a legend with Gothic novels. Northanger Abbey take many forms of parodying the usual idea of conventional Gothic novels by making Catherine Morland a tomboy, a person with not sufficient education, and a person that is not remarkable in anything. The book also parodies Gothic novels one more time by making of Catherine having a false hypothesis, false dramatic exaggeration, and false accusation by thinking that the general murdered his wife. Moreover, Northanger Abbey also parody and take up parody of multiple other Gothic novels, notably like Sicilian Romance and Mystery of Udolpho and all of that, making the main heroine unremarkable and making the whole theory and dramatic scene to be false and hilarious. So now let's move on to the character analyzation. Same number of characters I want to talk about is the contrast. The contrast between Isabella Thorpe and Eleanor Tierney. Isabella Thorpe is a character I might say a gold digger. She is interested in Catherine first by pure heart, but after learning of her brother being like a son of clergyman and thinking he is rich, she tried to marry him. However, after learning he's poor, she dumped him for another guy, and after the guy dumped her too, she get her karma. While Anna is not story. Anna is a well-educated and a kind person. She is not loud and annoying like Isabella. She don't want to sabotage or get jealous with the friendship between her and Isabella, her friend Isabella, like Catherine Isabella. But she want to keep things close with Catherine, and the friendship was always strong and intact. Then I want to mention about Henry Tierney. Henry Tierney is a 26-year-old clergyman from a rich family. He is sarcastic, funny, and not your typical hero. He is not like super handsome, super rich, super powerful. He is more like the character you would say, funny and sarcastic. That's what I think nowadays would prefer this character more. And what about Catherine herself? Catherine is not a remarkable person. In the book itself, it mentioned that. There we go. But I think that I like her anyways, and I think her character is well built. So let's move on to the motives of the book. I think that the main motives of the book is about wealth and status. Everybody in the book cares about those things. Isabella, a goldie girl, cares about how her life would be like if she cannot inherit like the minimum average, live with a clergyman, and she hopes to be a higher status, looking for a rich husband. Even the general himself cares about observing and comparing him with the rich Mrs. Allen, and continuously asks Catherine whether his furniture is as beauty as the Allen, or whether his garden is as better than them or not. Even other character himself, like John Thorpe, the side character, also cares about status, constantly bragging about his horses, his clothing, and all of that. And because of that, the book said itself to be the main motive to be obsessed with money and property, and a worry that, and the character worries of not achieving or not marrying off their children to family with status. Okay, so that is the end of my discussion about this book. If you want more information, I'll be link source in the description below. And now my recommendation. I highly recommend you guys reading the book that is Sense and Sensibility, and watch this movie about Northanger Abbey, because I think that it will be a good way to revive the plot point with the movie itself. I'll link that in description below too. And as all, I'll see you guys later for another review, and of course another story. And maybe if you're not remarkable, maybe you're not intelligent, you can still be a heroine, okay? According to Jane Austen though. That's all. Bye.